Hello, dear friends. Those who talk about the global financial reset without knowing about economics make many mistakes because all economic changes are based on existing rules, which are very complex and unknown to most, and the white hats want to follow all legal procedures so as to not to commit the same irregularities as the black hats. Opinion piece. Economic transformation. Going home for Christmas. Will 2022 be the year of financial collapse? As of Monday, the banking libor will be dead, or libor. It was manipulated by 20 banks in 2012. The indicator will not be accepted for new loans. It will be replaced by alternative benchmark rates. Basel III laws come into force on January 1st. Christmas is on January 7th in the Julian calendar. Global financial system plumbing replaced. This would prevent fraudulent speculative operations. The mother of all financial crises would start this year. China is hoarding food for a wet famine. Quantum computing is fifth dimensional and blockchain is third dimensional. Spain will use artificial intelligence to try to anticipate future crises. Euro benefited Germany and hurt Spain, Portugal, Italy and Greece. Let's start. It is said we would see big things at Christmas, and we are seeing little things every day. But it just so happens that Christmas is January 7th on the Julian calendar, which is exactly the one the Earth Alliance follows. So, we don't know yet whether or not the forecast will be accurate. The plumbing of the global financial system has been replaced, and hardly anyone noticed, according to Felix Salmo. Banks and regulators around the world have succeeded in replacing the plumbing of the entire financial system, even as almost no one has noticed the global operation to repair the financial infrastructure. To cleanse is to remove the dirt of filth from someone or something, and to make a place or collectivity free of elements that are considered excess or harmful. To clean up is to free a company or a financial system from economic difficulties, to repair or remedy something, as well as to secure or ensure the repair or satisfaction of the damage that may ensue. New rules. The libor index, which serves as a reference for financial contracts, will begin its farewell to the markets with the arrival of the new year, when the publication of the great majority is available. Indicators of available indicators will cease and will no longer be accepted as a reference for new loans, operations with derivatives or credits. As of Monday, libor, the interest rate at one underpinned some $300 billion in financial contracts from derivatives to corporate credit lines, will be dead. Now, libor has been replaced by much more robust and reliable benchmarks. The dollar is the only currency that will continue to publish an official libor rate, but even that will only be used for legacy credit products. Following the scandal unleashed in 2012, when the manipulation of the benchmark by banks was uncovered, the process of the withdrawing libor officially began in 2017 after an agreement was reached with the 20 banks that made up the panel of entities that compiled the libor index, as well as central banks and regulators, to carry out an orderly transition and reduce the risk and cost of the change. The elimination of libor in 2021 means major changes in financial services. The impact on contracts will be particularly significant. ARR's alternative reference rates are expected to fill the gap left by libor. ARRs are based on a large volume of actual transactions and are therefore difficult to manipulate. In addition, Basel III rules come into effect on January 1st, where banks must have a certain amount of physical gold available to back their deposits. Basel III is a set of reforms designed to mitigate risk within the international banking sector by requiring banks to maintain adequate leverage ratios and sufficient capital buffers. Fraud. This note is very important because labor is manipulated and was the center of one of the biggest scandals in the history of finance, which came to light in 2012. Banks racked up around $9 billion in fines, and several traders received prison sentences. Billions of dollars were traded in loans and derivatives based on libor, which meant that the traders could illegally raise or lower it by even a few hundredths of a percentage point. They could make huge sums of money. Despite having the pound as a reference, there are currencies of other countries linked to the libor interest, a fact that has been denounced on several occasions, with even fraudulent operations being artificially altered by the British banking interest itself in order to obtain a higher profitability in speculative operations. Definition. The London Interbank Offered Rate, called libor, is a daily reference rate under which banks are prepared to accept deposits, which is based on the interest rates and which bank offered and secure funds to all other banks in the wholesale money market or interbank market. Libor is the daily bank rate that is based on the interest rates at which banks lend money to each other in the wholesale interbank market. In this way, we can say that it is similar to Euribor, with the difference that it is based on the interest at which British banks grant each other financial credit. This rate is taken as an international reference for the calculation of derivative transactions. It is also used as a reference for the calculation of as a reference for mortgages. The importance of libor that lies in the relevance that the City of London has had as the world's financial center, despite the fact, however, that in Europe the benchmark is the Euribor. The federal funds rate is the benchmark in the US. Nevertheless, libor is still widely used internationally for the calculation of complex financial products. This index was published daily by the British Bankers Association, which is responsible for the regulation and reporting of credit, financial and banking operations in the British banking sector, and had the British pound sterling as its monetary reference. The libor is also provided by the Bank of Spain with a daily update. Reset News. First, global vacation travel chaos continues as more than 2,800 flights were cancelled worldwide. Second, the new Starlink satellite communication system will be active on tonight, Thursday, November 30th, 2021. 2 days are needed for every country in the world to activate the system. Third, on Monday, December 27th, the British-based technology company OneWeb launched 36 communication satellites into space from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. 4. Turkish lira falls. The Turkish lira weakened for the third consecutive day on Wednesday, falling 5.6%. 5. Dollar falls. the dollar fell on Wednesday in thin holiday trading, while the safe haven yen hit a 1-month low. 6. US incorporation and its fiat dollar would be officially dead as of January 1st, 2022, while the restored constitutional republic, with his new gold and asset-backed bill, would be active on the same day, according to sources. 7. A major stock market and cryptocurrencies collapse is expected. After increasing in value by about 70% this year, experts predict a dramatic drop in Bitcoin in the face of tighter regulations, CNBC reports. 8. Bondholders have codes where they can see the money in their account, but do not have access. 9. Royal Madison expect VR to occur between mid-22 and 23 or later. VR means revaluation of currencies. 10. What will be then to trigger all of this? We're expecting one of two things, or maybe a combination of both, or maybe some kind of trigger event. It could be the China background default, or it could be just waiting for key people to return to their place since travel has been disrupted. 11. The Iraqi government has become independent because it no longer meets with the US nor the IMF, World Bank, United Nations, etc. The new Iraqi dinar rate is the budget to be released to the world between January 10th and 15th, and will be decisive for the global financial reset. 12. China is preparing for a global famine, but if famine is on the way, the Chinese are being extremely cautious, and the amount of food they are now stockpiling is definitely staggering. China is expected to have 69% of the world's corn reserves in the first half of 2022 crop year, 60% of its rice, and 51% of its wheat. 13. Ghislaine Maxwell convicted. Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty by a U.S. jury Wednesday of helping the late financial molest young people in general, sealing a remarkable fall from grace for the British socialite. 14. Belgium makes U-turn to allow cinemas theaters to reopen. The Belgian government reversed course Wednesday by allowing cinemas to reopen after a court suspended their closure ordered a week ago. 15. Spain will use artificial intelligence to try to anticipate future crises. This Tuesday, 28th, the Council of Ministers renewed national security strategy, which includes as one of its main novelties the creation of an early warning system to detect critical situations preventively through massive data analysis. 16. A major project of humankind is to find ways to recycle waste from landfills to achieve a cleaner world. This is currently being done in the Alpujarra village of Almocita in Spain, which produces compost from organic waste as natural fertilizer for organic agriculture. Economic collapse. Will 2022 be the year of economic collapse? By the Nomad Economist of the Atlantis Report. The founding fathers saw the national debt as a robbery of future generations. The stock market will have its wings clipped this year. The Fed will not be able to finance a war and pump the market at the same time. The collapse is a process, but people won't notice until they wake up one day and the dollar has been devalued by 50%. or the major exporting countries no longer accept the dollar as a form of payment. The trigger could be the debt bubble, which would be like an atomic bomb. The Fed cannot do anything about it, but will print more money, unemployment soars, government tax revenues plummet, new taxes are created to take care of pensions, and so on. The water recedes, and we are left with a country that is now a dry swamp in which to build a utopia. The mother of all financial crises would begin this year. It is a crisis of political origin. Politicians never act before a crisis, and they never accept responsibility for what they have done. Society's thinking is changing from, in quotes, "if you don't think like me, you are wrong," to, in quotes again, "if you don't think like me, I hate you." In this election cycle, you will see people killing each other over their political beliefs. When this happens, civilization, as we know, would end in 5 to 10 years. Then civilization would split for safety into like-minded tribes, and in the end the world would start over again a new cycle of civilization, and hopefully learn from the mistakes of the previous cycle of civilization. Let's hope we don't end up in another 600-year dark age like what happened at the end of the Roman civilization. Quantum alternative. The reality of the quantum financial system is that it establishes credibility and the value for the currency of each nation participating in the QFS according to Ron Giles. Everything will be backed by a central gold reserve secured with serial numbers identifying each kilo of gold value. When this value is established and all currencies are on par with any other currency, then the whole issue of disparity between currencies, with one country saying theirs is more valuable than another because we have more gold, is to put to rest, and there is no justification for such a misguided claim. All currencies will be backed in gold from a single source, and their value is frozen forever. The question of value is settled forever of each and every currency, regardless of a country's gold holdings or any other assets they possess. The establishment and use of accounts in the QFS as of December 25, 2021 has not yet been implemented. While certain elements of quantum consciousness have been interacting with centralized secondary banking computers for more than 4 years, the entire QFS has not been activated. When the funds are released from the currency reset, this means that the QFS has been fully activated, and this will trigger the global financial reset where all currencies are reset to gold-backed currencies in the QFS. This is when we can see that the full QFS has been implemented, and the phasing out of the central banking system will eventually give way to a new financial service centers that will be funded by an army of benefactors. By the way, blockchain concepts are integrated into the QFS, but the quantum computer is a fifth-dimensional creation, but blockchain is third-dimensional and is actually inferior to the system that the QFS uses. Quantum sources. Quantum sources by Grant Ouellette. All creative sources are quantum, although most human beings perceive them as linear. Some quantum sources are based on a constantly changing subatomic position within the infinite number of electrons orbitals of the hydrogen molecule. Logic and reasoning have quantum sources, since their all linear arguments lead to inconsistency. However, linear reasoning and observations led to quantum physics. When the pineal gland, the third eye, is stimulated, as in meditation or dreams, images and visions can appear in a non-linear fashion, such as flipping through a comic book illustration. Parallel timelines are the result of a quantum source of timelines. Evolution of consciousness. The Bible calls this day Armageddon, the end of all things, and yet, for the first time in the history of the planet, a species has the technology to prevent its own extinction. All who pray with us should know that everything that can be done to prevent this disaster is being put into service. The human thirst for excellence, knowledge, every step of the ladder of science, every adventurous reach into space, all our modern technologies and imaginations combined, even the wars we have fought, have provided us with the tools to fight this terrible battle. Through all the chaos that airs our history, through all the evils and discord, through all the pain and suffering, through all our times, there is one thing that has fueled our soul and lifted our species above its origins, and that is our courage. The dreams of an entire planet are focused on those brave souls who travel to the heavens. May we all citizens of the whole world watch these events. Germany. Germany to the East by David Lifschultz. The miracle of Europe is the German success in fulfilling almost all Germany's goals of World War I and World War II or II. That is what the Ukraine crisis is all about. The CIA considered Germany as their anchor in Europe against Russia, which explains why they gave Germany all of Europe up to Greece and Italy, and are now working to give Ukraine to Germany as well as Belarus, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, where the last three are already in the fold. Germany organized Euroland, or the European Common Market, in the following way: manipulating currency values to bring about the destruction of Southern European industries. What happened when the euro was initiated was that the southern level of Europe's currencies, such as the lira, were exchanged for a value that took their industrial products out of the German and Northern European market, and it was a disaster for Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece, etc. What really happened is that Germany realized its worth and ambitions by taking over Europe, by creating a common market that gave its industries an economy of scale to destroy its competition in Europe and to compete with US industry, which until then had the largest market in the world. China's economic expansion that held off Japan was encouraged after Deng Xiaoping took power in 1978. It began in earnest after 1985. Russia fell trapped with the rising China in the east and the titanic Germany in the west controlling Europe. So, in the 90s, the oligarchs destroyed Russia. It gave them hyperinflation, and before they knew it, their pensioners were begging for bread on the street. And those below the poverty line in Eastern Europe and Russia rose from 40 million to 168 million. The streets of Moscow became an Al Capone battleground between armed oligarchs and gunfights. Now, the US threats China as an enemy only because it has grown too big. The reason the US doesn't want to play Russia against China as an ally is that they fear it will lead Germany to ally with Russia and China and leave the US out in the cold. This is the sole cause of the Ukraine crisis. It is to force the European Union away from Russian natural resources. That creates another problem. Those Russian natural resources will go to China, and the European Union will lose them. The US fears that if Russia supplies its natural resources to China, they will lose most of the heart of Eurasia, and China will unbalance the world. Suggestions. Cultivate love. Feel how you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, if you can't pull that feeling out, then think about what you love, who you love, or what you love. Maybe it's your cat or your dog. Maybe it's your cousin. Maybe it's your loved one or your parent, your child, etc. Bring that feeling and immerse yourself when all you are thinking about is how much you love that other. Then just open the door and say to yourself, quotes, can I allow this to flow into me? And then that love for you sweep into you, into your skin, into your pores, into your heart. Cultivate enlightenment. The Overlighting Project is a stream of life flowing into Earth now, imprinting light into the cells of many beings. As the light is imprinted in the cells, it activates the wisdom that is needed, the wisdom that has been forgotten, and the wisdom to assist this new reality that is dawning. And that is all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.